Hello. So in my last video, I walked you through the first round of getting my color analysis done in Korea. And as I've promised, today I'm going to walk you through the second round of my color analysis session that I had with a different analyst. And this analyst I've also found through her YouTube channel initially. It's called Yuire Colors, and she's actually the one that introduced me to the 16 season system, which I've created some videos about in the past. So based on this system, I suspected myself to be a soft winter, which I've mentioned before, but it was never 100% confirmed. So did the result come out as I expected? Well, stay tuned to find out. So before we go through the draping session, I'm just going to throw a disclaimer out there that my experience with this specific analyst is probably very biased because I ended up taking the color analyst training course with her while I was in Korea. So I took some of the online courses that she offers in the past. And I think that she offers a really interesting and refreshing perspective on colors. It's somewhat related to color psychology as well. And she talks about colors in terms of energy. And not only is this energy that's related to different color seasons linked to our overall coloring, but her perspective is that they're also linked to our facial features because there's different types of energy that's created based on the shapes and the lines that make up our overall appearance. And as somebody who analyzes facial proportions and talks about facial impressions a lot, I felt like her perspective could provide some sort of a link between color analysis and facial analysis. So it definitely sparked my interest, which led me to take all of the online courses that are offered by her. And as I was making plans to visit Korea, I was able to line up the dates for the in-person color analyst training course as well. So the schedule worked out and I did end up taking the 4-week intensive course. So I'm now certified. So I just want to say that my experience is likely very biased. I like her perspective a lot and I agree with her on a lot of her ideas, although I feel like I need more time and research to sort of develop my own perspective when it comes to merging colors and facial analysis. Another reason why I'm bringing this up is because this session actually took place after my in-person class where we draped ourselves and figured out our color season. So I went into this appointment already knowing what the outcome is gonna be. I still signed up for it because I wanted the full experience from a customer perspective, and already knowing my color season actually allowed us to focus a little bit more on the specific questions that I had, as well as some gray areas in my mind. So for example, the questions that popped up during my first color analysis session. So you'll notice that the draping session was already geared towards looking at my potential seasons for the most part, and we didn't really go through a lot of the colors that are outside of those potential seasons. So similar to the first session, I started out with filling out a short survey about my style preferences and the colors that I usually wear and avoid, etc. It was pretty standard, and we also talked about some specific areas that I wanted more clarity on. So I really wanted to focus on two things. First, if I am indeed a soft winter or even a deep summer in the 16 season system. Because I mentioned in the previous video that I feel like I'm pretty neutral when it comes to the temperature of colors, but I do get a lot of feedback that cooler colors look better on me. I also resonate with the energy of winter colors when it comes to my personal style preferences. I really like clean and minimal lines, and I'm drawn to sort of the restrained energy of winter, but I know my best colors are not as bright as true winter colors, which is why I thought I could be a soft winter. I've even considered deep summer as a potential color season for me because when you look at all of the 3 color palettes, they're actually not that different. Like all 3 seasons contain deep and slightly soft colors, but deep autumn colors are obviously warmer and soft winter colors are a bit brighter than the deep summer colors. So she explained to me that deep summers will be able to wear up to neutral cool colors when it comes to temperature, and soft winters will be able to wear icy colors. So those are near white colors that only contain like a drop of pigment. In my previous video, I shared the PCCS chart with you guys, and she actually has her own variation of the chart that includes icy colors. And later in the draping session, you'll see the differences between warm versus cool colors on me to check the possibility of me being a deep summer, as well as icy colors to check if I could be a soft winter. Now, the second area I wanted more clarity on was whether I have an olive skin tone, because the first color analyst told me that I don't. And this time, the verdict was that I have partial olive skin. So parts of my neck and forehead and a little bit around the chin show more prominent olive tones, but overall the skin has more of a grayish cast to it. And this I talked a bit about in my warm versus cool olive tones video, that having a grayish cast to your skin could be an indicator that you're a cooler olive. She did also mention that it could be because my skin is more tan than usual that she can't really see the olive tones as much. And that made a lot more sense to me than measuring the skin tone with a measuring device, because different parts of the face and body are going to show different values, and that's exactly why foundation matching is so difficult for a lot of us, right? And then we quickly talked about my hair and eye colors, and she mentioned that my eye color is on the softer side, which I always talk about, and she specifically mentioned it's because of the color of my irises, because when you look at them closely, they have more of an orangey tone to them. All right, I've dragged this out enough. Let's jump right into the draping session. So as we sat down for draping, there were a few things that I really liked from the get-go. The first thing was she used a hairpiece on just one side of my face to mimic my natural hair color, because my current hair is dyed into this reddish brown. And she could be just using a white fabric to cover the hair, but what she explained to me was that hair color should also be considered as a color that I'm using or wearing. And we kind of want to look at the holistic effect, including the hair color. And the benefit from this was that even with the same fabric, we could compare how the color reacts with my natural hair color versus the dyed hair color. So I thought that was a really nice touch. She also made me take out my earrings for accuracy purposes, and I thought the attention to detail just made me feel more confident in her abilities as a client. So the first area we checked for was the temperature of colors. So we compared cool and bright colors, which are your typical winter colors, versus warm and dark colors. And this was intentional because we already knew what season I am, and I'm definitely not a spring. So she didn't even bother using the warm and light colors. I think she also used brighter cool colors on me intentionally just to show a clearer difference, because when we draped deep and cool colors, they looked okay, and she explained that it's because those are the colors that are suitable for all deep seasons, whether you're warm or cool. So comparing cool and bright versus warm and dark colors on me, the warm colors made my skin tone look more even overall, whereas cool colors brightened my skin, but only in certain sections. So there was less evenness and the colors looked a little bit more disconnected. And if we were to compare all three types, so cool and bright versus cool and deep versus warm and deep, the cool and deep and the warm and deep colors both look more blended, whereas the cool and bright colors tend to stand out more and they look a bit more separated. She also mentioned that more so than the temperature of colors, it was actually easier for her to tell that bright and light colors tend to jump out too much against my skin. So that would make her suspect that I am likely not any of the true seasons, because true seasons are the most sensitive to temperature, but I was more sensitive to brightness. And then we moved on to draping different whites. And first she draped a soft white on me. And the verdict here was that I definitely lean more warm, because even for deep autumns, they should be able to wear this soft white because they're adjacent to winter and they're pretty neutral in temperature. But she said the soft white looked a little bit too cool for the orange tones in my eyes. And then we looked at ivory and oatmeal next to check the reflectability of colors. So we were comparing a color that only contains white versus a color that contains a slight amount of gray, so both white and black. And we could see that oatmeal was definitely a better choice for me than ivory because ivory was a little too reflective. It caught too much attention, so the color jumped out first, whereas the oatmeal looked a bit more blended. And then we looked at different shades of reds next. So here, again, we could see how a bright red was just too reflective for me, but anything ranging from deep to darker shades works for me. And when it comes to cooler reds, they were okay as long as the color was deep enough, but as soon as the color became lighter, my lips started turning more blue and the color looked too separated. When we were comparing different reds at a similar level of depth, we could see how the warmer red was a little bit better than the cooler red. So this was just another confirmation that I definitely lean more towards warm than cool. So at this point, we were slowly ruling out deep summer and soft winter. And this became even clearer with draping different blues because blue is the coolest color. So it only works for me when the color is deep enough, so like a navy, or when there's significantly warmer blues. An interesting fact I learned was that even with navies, they only work for me when there's no gray added. So a dark navy works, but a dark grayish navy does not work. This is because blue is already a cool color and gray is also a cool color, so combining those two makes the temperature of the color way too cool for me, and it's also not strong or pigmented enough for seasons like deep autumn or bright spring or any of the winter seasons. So this sort of deep grayish navy only works best for summers, and this was another indicator that we could use to rule out deep summer for me. And honestly, this was kind of a bummer for me because I have a couple shirts that I really like in this color. But what I really liked about her explanations was that she'll give you an alternative. So even with the grayish navy, she told me that I can still wear it as long as I wear it with black. So I could throw like a black jacket on top or use the color as my bottoms or as an accessory. So I really liked how practical her solutions were rather than just saying, don't wear the color. Another thing that I really liked about her approach, and I know I'm like really praising her a lot at this point, but hey, I told you my view was going to be biased. So as we were draping different greens, she noticed that my lips have a lot of purple tones in them naturally, and she mentioned that this could be a distraction from doing a holistic analysis because we don't ever want to focus on looking at just one area of the face, like the overall look is more important. So to avoid getting fixated on the lips, she used a light tint to just hide the purple a bit. And this was another area of attention to detail that I really liked because a deep green was a really good color on me, but it definitely looked even better with the purple in my lips toned down a bit. And then we also looked at icy colors to check if I could be a soft winter, and these colors did make my skin tone look brighter, but overall my face also looked a bit flatter and two-dimensional. You can't really tell with the footage, but I could definitely see this effect in the mirror. And she mentioned that this is definitely not the effect we would expect if I was a winter. So at this point, we were able to rule out soft winter as well. And this was like a nail in the coffin moment for me that I am truly a deep autumn, regardless of how many seasons there are in a given system. One thing that I found particularly interesting about her assessment was I assumed that I'm pretty neutral in temperature. So even as a deep autumn, I thought I'd probably lean more towards deep winter, but she actually said that I lean more towards true autumn. And the reason for this is because of my eye color. So the orange tones in my eyes work really well with the true autumn colors, but my skin tone doesn't because it can't really handle medium valued colors all that well. So I know in the past I said that your eye color is not a huge area that determines your color season. I will fully admit and correct myself. I was wrong. I mean, I still think that your skin tone matters a lot more, but your eye color also has a part to play. So when it comes to my skin, it needs colors that create a higher level of contrast. So I need colors that are either dark or light enough. So in the previous video, you know how I was really confused about comparing clear versus soft colors? I assumed that soft colors were going to be better, but clear colors ended up being a better choice. And I figured out that it was because all of the colors used in that comparison were not deep enough. Like they were all medium valued colors. So it's kind of like comparing colors that don't work for me regardless to see which ones were less worse for me. And the clear colors looked better because they're more pigmented. Like I explained with the grayish navy example, deep seasons need colors that are strong or pigmented enough because the word deep not only represents darkness in colors, but also represents colors that have enough strength and weight and that create a higher level of contrast. So the comparison itself was invalid to begin with since we were looking at the wrong value of colors. So this was a very big aha moment for me. So similar to the first session, after the draping, we sat down to go over all of the results together. So she walked me through different accessories colors, and then we also went through the different characteristics of colors in terms of temperature, value, and reflectability. So how much the color pops to the eye. So temperature-wise, I lean neutral warm, so that rules out deep summer for me. And then value-wise, I can do light or dark, but nothing really in between because they don't create a high enough level of contrast against my skin. And then when it comes to reflectability, I should stick to soft colors. So I should avoid colors that only contain white. She also indicated in the PCCS chart that I should avoid icy, light, bright, vivid, and reflective pale tones. So that also ruled out soft winter for me. I didn't bring my makeup pouch to this session because I felt pretty confident about it from my last session, so we just went through some product suggestions instead, and I ended up buying some of the products that were suggested, and I'm wearing one of the lip colors today. So overall, the results were very similar between the first and second sessions. Surprisingly, I am a deep autumn regardless of which system we use. But process-wise, I think I was a bit happier with the second session than the first. And maybe it's because there were less surprises. And like I said, I am obviously biased. But I am a true believer that we know ourselves the best when it comes to our style. So if something feels off, then it's usually for a good reason. And I've really learned to trust my instinct over time with this. And with the first session, not only were there more surprises, but I just also felt really disconnected in terms of their recommendations, jumping from deep autumn as my first season to vivid spring as my second. I've even looked up their videos on their YouTube channel on style suggestions for these two seasons, and the recommendations seem so vastly different between deep autumn and vivid spring. To be clear, I don't want to sound like I'm unhappy. Like, it was definitely a useful and valuable session for me, but it's just as I took more time to review everything again, some of the things just didn't make sense. Like I said, I am very biased, but I think just understanding the psychological effects of colors in relation to the 4 seasons and having a bit of that background knowledge that jumping from a deep autumn to a bright spring is kind of huge, I think that just made the second session much more relatable for me. I was also provided with a PDF file to go home with, which was quite an extensive guideline for the colors within my season and how I can wear each color in real life. I'm not allowed to share the file directly here because of copyright, but I'll share some similar images on the screen just as examples. So I received tons of images like this of different color combinations and outfit ideas, as well as best and worst hair colors for me and worst colors or styles for me to avoid. On the downside, the price for the second session was double the first session. So the first session was about 4 hours long, including color analysis and body type analysis, whereas the second session was about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and we just focused on color analysis, but the price for the two were the same. I will say that I was more satisfied with the second session overall, but that's also because I got a lot of value through taking the color analyst training course, and I was able to ask more in-depth questions. Both sessions were great, and I'll probably create another video just to compare the two sessions in more detail and share more of my opinions about getting your colors analyzed. I know that was a bit of a longer video than usual, so I'll stop there for now. I hope you found the video helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. Until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.